a public employee earns from $2,000 to $5,000 a month, and that's the big problem. Government spending here is way out of control. I think it's a calculus around 80% of the budget goes to paying those salaries, and only 20% goes into infrastructure and other projects. And the reason for that is because having that amount of government employees kind of assures you a victory in the next elections, because you're talking about 600,000 employees that depend on you.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you. Welcome to the party, pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 280. I'm talking to Marcos Quevedo. He is in Bolivia. We're going to talk about Javier Milei a little bit, and of course, the prospects for liberty in Bolivia. How are you, Marcos?
I'm good, Chris. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. That's a cool looking background you got there. You got some paintings, but anyway, how did you get into libertarianism and free market economics?
Well, you know what? Actually, it's kind of funny. Well, it all started with basically talking to people on the right, friends that I had in politics on the right, who started exchanging ideas, debating with them. I was pretty naive. I started libertarianism, I'm guessing over a decade ago. And, in the beginning, you're kind of naive. You don't really understand the politics that much or economics that well. And I had some stances that today I would think are maybe left wing leaning. I used to I thought Obama was cool for some time. So it was kind of I was kind of brainwashed with a lot of left wing media. So then I started talking to people on the right, and things made sense. Economic things made sense. There was and further on, there was a whole movement started exactly what you said by Javier Milei, which was the libertarian movement, because Milei was just outlandish. In the interviews, he was just insulting people, and it was funny and educational at the same time. So he was a really big inspiration for me and a lot of other people too. And I followed Milei, like you guys say, before he was cool, right? So I mean, I knew about him. I used to watch his interviews way before that, when he was just coming up in the ranks, and as a simple, just as an economist. And well, after that, he gained a lot of traction, and where he is today, he's the president of Argentina now. So that's kind of where I started.
So did Milei convert you? Is that what you're saying?
No, I was already leaning towards there, but I mean, Milei made it more radical. I think he really got the libertarian feeling out, because the way he expressed himself, the way he talked to people on the left side of the spectrum, it was entertaining and it made a lot of sense. So I think he made libertarianism pretty cool for the South Americans. It was really cool to see that. It was different.
So who were some of your other influences before Milei?
Well, Friedman. I used to watch
Milton Friedman or David Friedman?
Sorry?
Milton Friedman or David Friedman?
No, Milton. The Free to Choose channel, the videos that they used to put up on YouTube, the books also, the Free to Choose book. Then basically then got into a little bit of Mises and Rothbard, saw some Thomas Sowell conferences.
Soul, yes.
Yeah, and but basically those are kind of the first guys that kind of led me there,
But it seems like you became more confident about this when you learned about Milei.
Milei, it's interesting because Milei, to make a revolution really effective, you got to have somebody who makes it very I can't think of a better word, but cool. I mean, I mean, I love Friedman. I love watching the show and everything, but it's very different to the way that Milei really talked and brought people into his side. He really convinced people because he was entertaining to watch. I mean, reading an economy book is not as entertaining as watching Milei talk about it. He explains things very simple, in a simple way, and very entertaining way. So that really helped out. I think that's kind of what's missing in the libertarian parties all over the world. Like people as charismatic as he was.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, the guy was the lead singer of Rolling Stone cover band. I mean, I call it rock star liberalism for that reason alone.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, he was a rock star dude. He had the hair. He had he used to play soccer. He was a loudmouth. He used bad words, and people loved it. And in South America, just so you know, the way Argentinians talk is very entertaining in general to us South Americans. I don't know if there's something similar in the States, but I mean, it's like the best comedians, like the funniest comedians, the best comedy shows usually come from Argentina. It's the way they speak, the way they express themselves that makes it so entertaining. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work with like a Chilean or a Peruvian talking that way. It only works with Argentina.
Well, Chileans barely speak audible Spanish anyway, so
True.
So maybe that would, yeah. I need to. I love my Chilean friends, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying.
But it seems to be pretty much agreement among the Spanish speaking countries that they.
Exactly. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
But you said, but what do you think? So you think there's something unique about you mentioned Argentine comedy. What exactly do you think? What is this quality? Is it just their accents, or what is it about them that?
It's the accent. It's a very different accent from other regions in South America, and they're very fluent with that. The way they speak, they use more bad words like frequently into their language, which they don't mean as a bad way. Like, I mean, I don't know how to give an example in English, but it's like they incorporate little insults into their everyday chat, which if you weren't Argentinian, maybe you could get offended, but they don't. So that makes it it's very dynamic. It's a really dynamic way they speak, and
Yeah.
it's different, dude. I mean, it really is different. That's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, maybe it's something you have to know Spanish to understand. It's really, but so are Argentine comedians more popular, say, in the rest of South America? I mean, do those comedians go travel to other countries?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like let's say there was a really popular comedy show called Video Match, and it was all Argentinians, and that show was huge all over South America, even like Central America, everywhere. And it was they were funny, but it was funnier because they were Argentinians, so that they express themselves in a much funnier way, much more creative way.
I wonder what makes it that way. That's very interesting to hear, because I've not. There's certainly different nuances. I mean, I think probably to a lot of Americans, every South American sounds the same, but since you know the language, it's you see the differences, and of course you've got some of the best English I've heard here in a while too. So it's thank you for that.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, Milei, that's the thing. Milei knows how to have fun. I mean, sometimes I see him during the debates and he's laughing about these people. It's just so wild to see how that works out.
He's very quick. You know what the advantage of Milei is? He's an economist, so he knows what he's talking about. All those political guys that were running against him had no clue how economics work. So he was very quick, really quick answers, really quick comebacks, and really effective comebacks. That just humiliated the other guys, and it was pretty amusing to watch those presidential debates. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, so you were watching the presidential debates.
Oh yeah,
What do Bolivians think of Milei right now? I mean, he's becoming a celebrity all over South America.
Well, Bolivians, I mean, like any country, that there's people who hate the libertarian or right wing movements, and they think of him as the typical arguments, the little dumb arguments, as a fascist, as a fucking authoritarian. Sorry about an authoritarian, about
Swearing is
um, the usual left wing chatter, just the usual insults, racism, the anti-LGBTs. It's all BS, I mean, but I think there's a large population. I think that I say more than half the population that I speak to in general. I mean, people from high social status to a lower social status. I've heard a lot of good things from him. I think people are kind of realizing that the way out of these holes that the left has put us in any country in general, is basically what Milei is doing. Like, there's too much public spending. I mean, everybody now realizes there's too much public spending. Even the left now realizes that. So I mean, that's kind of like that's everybody knows that the government spends too much. So all right, but nobody knows how to reduce that, how to make it more effective. So I mean, everybody is that I've spoken to, a great majority, really likes Milei, but they kind of fail to understand how you reduce government spending, and how what things they'd have to give up. I don't think people realize that yet. So I mean, they have a good idea about Milei, but when you talk to them in the political spectrum of how a Bolivian Milei, or sort of, I mean, there will never be a Bolivian Milei. But I mean, it's how someone with similar political points of views became president, how you would fix that. They don't really know how. So I mean, they like him, but his ideas, if you applied him in Bolivia, I'm sure they would kind of like protest about some things, because you'd be taking certain benefits from them.
That might be the case. Bolivia is obviously there's some huge differences, though. Bolivia has a very large indigenous population, and of course, Bolivia is also 1/4 the population, but still a pretty large country with land area and a lot more mountains. I mean, what can you tell me
Yeah,
about that situation? I mean, I think Bolivia has 30 some languages in the country.
yeah. Supposedly there's like 36 I think I say it in English, original
Yes.
indigenous nations, so something like that.
Yeah, indigenous nations. Yes,
And
people who were in South
yeah,
America
but I
before
mean,
Christopher Columbus.
exactly. Yeah, but I mean, we're a country with, I think the last census we're 11 million, 12 million, I think, somewhere
Yeah,
around there, 12
something
million
like that.
people.
Yes.
We got a huge piece of land. We got natural resources. I mean,
Yeah.
in abundance. But yeah, like you said, the political spectrum, what the government, what the mass government did when they arrived into power, is basically create a big battle, a big cultural battle between the indigenous people and, let's say, the people in the city. They,
Yeah.
they created they created this kind of resentment, kind of like, oh, they kept us down all these years, that they abused us, they laughed at us, and now we're in power, and now this has created some kind of like indigenous supremacy in Bolivia, in the laws and everything. Some laws have been made that benefit indigenous people, and more than people, let's say, like a white person, or a city person.
Yes.
And that's created an inequality in the eyes of the law. So there have been many cases of, let's say, of supposed racism cases. That there was a case like a couple of weeks ago when this indigenous lady was picking some fruits from a private park, from a public park, and a gentleman that lived in front of the park was like, "Hey, why are you tearing down these plants and taking this fruit?" And they actually sentenced him to 3 years in jail for discrimination, when there was absolutely no discrimination whatsoever. So
Yeah.
it creates legal fallacies, just like the one I mentioned. I mean, and there's thousands of examples. So
Yeah.
That's what this government did. Basically, turned it into kind of like a hate war. And before this government came, I mean, I'm not going to say that. I mean, indigenous people had all the rights that they have today. I mean, they didn't lack any rights. It's kind of like the, they could buy. I mean, they could buy a house in the most exclusive parts of the city, and they did that. I mean, there was a lot of people from indigenous backgrounds who made tons of money through like businesses in the city or outside or bringing stuff in, who bought houses. I mean, they have more money than the old school white guys that were hanging around here, who had the power back in like the 70s and 80s. And it was fair. I mean, everybody could buy whatever they wanted. Nobody was prohibited from anything. But they used the whole class and the whole race issue to really further their political agenda and really divide the people, man. There's a lot of division in that right now. So, yeah, I mean, and this happens everywhere. I mean, I've seen the stuff happen. Even I've heard stuff of this happen in the U.S. With like BLM and all that stuff. It's all really Marxist.
Yeah, it's
Um,
yeah.
Issues, and propaganda.
I mean, yeah, it's all Marxist. I mean, for example, I know Bolivia has 2 or maybe even 3 million people who speak Quechua,
Yeah.
which of course is the most. There's debate of whether Quechua is a language or it's a language family, but that's the third most. If you consider it one language, that's the third most spoken language in South America after Brazil, after Portuguese and Spanish, and of course, there's a large Quechua in Peru, and that was the language of the Incas. So and one thing I've also noticed, though, a tendency too, is it seems like the Marxists in South America are they really go after the farmers and the small country people, and the city people tend to be more capitalist, whereas here in America, it's the opposite. I mean, most American farmers tend to have this attitude of, no, we're not going to embrace Marxism. The small town people reject Marxism, but it's people in the cities. What can you comment on, small towns versus big cities? And you only really have 3 down there, right? 3 or 4 big cities, right?
Yeah. We have like 3 big cities. It's the 3 main capital, the 3 main cities: La Paz, Santa Cruz, and Cochabamba. And there's a big debate with the whole agriculture thing, because I mean, if you talk to the people that lead the agricultural scene, or the marketplace, they know. I mean, they know that it's like the I don't know how to describe it, the circle of life. It's like,
Yeah.
they plant the food, and the city people consume it, and it's the same process over and over again, and one can't live without the other. They know that. But I think it's the workers that work in those plants and have small farms, that they get brainwashed into these ideas that they're being kind of oppressed. When I mean, there's no logical argument for any of that. That's kind of different, because I mean, in the States, you're talking about all the farming. If I'm not wrong, is kind of in the middle, right? They're all Republican states, right?
Yeah, largely, yes. It's very
Largely,
much
right? Yeah.
urban. It's very much big city versus country,
Exactly,
small
yeah.
town.
And the people in the states that are getting brainwashed into these ideas are usually are liberal leaning people that have such. I mean, I'm not saying that they live like kings, but I mean, I mean, they're living a great life in New York, and and DC, and California. I mean, you can talk about inflations and the rent prices going up, but I mean, those people are talking about. You're talking about the 1% of the 1% worldwide.
Yeah.
It's like top living conditions worldwide. So
Yes.
it's people that have it way too good, haven't had to really battle for anything, and just complain. And they're very they get these ideas stuck in their head real easily. So I mean, that's kind of it. That's a little. I'm just summing that up, as I think why those people fall for those ideas.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, you only have 53 cities that are 10,000 people or more, And of course, the largest city and the one that has direct flights from the USA is Santa Cruz de la Sierra. So that
Yeah,
even though it's not a capital, so it is interesting that Bolivia is one of the cities in South America where the largest city is not the capital.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
La Paz and
And
Sucre. I know you have different capitals. Can you explain what that's all about? La Paz is
oh,
one capital, and then Sucre is the other capital. And
yeah,
La
sure,
Paz
sure.
means the peace, and
Yeah, the
Sucre, I
peace.
don't know. Yeah.
Sucre is the original capital. It's the official capital of Bolivia. That's where the country was founded. That's where the first all the political scene was in the beginning.
Yeah. So
After that, all the government operations were moved to La Paz, into a bigger city. So everything. So La Paz is the government capital, but the real capital is Sucre. So it's I don't know how to explain this. Like let's say uh, it's like Philadelphia. Philadelphia was, I think, it was the first capital of the states, right?
yeah, I know what you mean. So it's more of a
Yeah,
ceremony.
and then moved to DC. So it's kind of the same idea.
Okay, yeah, that's the case with a lot of American states too. They're the first capital is not necessarily the current capital, so they just keep
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
because Sucre is only 237,000, and
It's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful city, but it is still the legal capital of Bolivia.
yeah, and of course the other thing too is La Paz, for especially our people who want to travel, is also the highest national capital in the world. So if you're
Yep.
concerned about
Yep.
altitude sickness, you may not want to go to La Paz.
3,650 meters up in the sky
Yes,
above
yeah,
sea level.
yes, indeed, that's about as high as Machu Picchu. It's not. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's all right. I mean, I recommend people come visit. You know, it's a nice city, and you'll probably feel lightheaded the first day, but then you'll be okay.
yeah, and you're in La Paz, right? Yeah,
Yeah, La Paz. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I've got to tell you, I went to Bogota and I was really hurting. So I don't know if I will come to La Paz for that reason alone. But
I'll wait for you with an oxygen tank. Don't worry.
yeah, well, maybe that'll help. It's there's a lot of reasons. Yeah, so yeah, yeah, and of course Bolivia is named for Simon Bolivar. So yeah, so what is the we talked more about the indigenous. What is the current situation with liberty there? I mean, is it? I mean, how if I was thinking about moving to Bolivia, I mean, what would be the reasons to move there or not move there? I mean, as far as politics is concerned.
To move here, I mean, I would say, I mean, if you're coming as an investor,
Yeah.
well, you have a pretty competitive minimum wage. You know, wages are very competitive here. There's a huge black market here, which I don't know, would be convenient for you as an investor from outside, but I mean, right now the political scene in Bolivia, the whole liberty scene is pretty complicated, man. Because like we were mentioning before, there's a lot of like very draconian laws of like
Yeah.
uh, with the indigenous theme and the whole women's theme. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people being sent to jail for criticizing women in politics. You know, there's a special law created for that you can't criticize women in politics because I don't know. Apparently, we're all equal, but women can't take certain arguments or comments. You know, so you could be thrown into jail for that. Um, and I mean, if you're an opposition leader, you can be sure that the actual government is going to be suing you for or creating a lawsuit for you for whatever reason, for discrimination or for some stuff you did like 10 years ago, which wasn't unproven, which was not proven, or um, you know what I mean. There's a lot of persecution. You know, if you're a businessman and you're really spoken about speaking against the government in public, they'll go audit you. You know, kind of like Obama and the IRS, with I guess Republicans, that's kind of what they're doing now. This has happened now. Like the richest Bolivian is called this guy called Marcelo Claure, who owns a soccer team here, and he was kind of outspoken against the government in the last few weeks, and he reported that he was getting audited by the taxman and the whole football club too. Just
Yeah.
it's not a coincidence. You know what I'm saying? It's impossible for it to be a coincidence. So there's stuff like that happens. So I mean, liberty is definitely under attack here. Definitely, I'd say it's. If you're an investor and you want to bring money here to Bolivia, it's not a safe place to do it right now because you don't really have any legal protection or security. Because I mean, there was a bunch of companies that were owned by Italian companies and a famous telephone company that got nationalized here, and that belongs to the government. And they if they got paid something, it was like cents on the dollar, And the same thing happened with the gas, with the exploration for the gas and other natural resources. So I mean, there's no legal security here, and that's what people complain about. That there's no investments coming in because there's always a risk that if it goes too well or if you say something bad against them, they'll just revoke it from you. They'll take it away. So what I say, liberty is very, very limited here, man. Very, even for the press, it's very limited, and people don't realize that. And unfortunately, when you look in Facebook and you look at the comments that people make on videos on TikTok that talk about some issues, it's not even the government that I mean, it's what I'm not sure who said this, but it was Orwell or the idea behind Orwell's 84 that the only thing more dangerous than the government looking over you is your neighbor looking over you.
Yes.
And that's kind of what's going on here, man. And it's the people that do dumb comments and people even asking for more government regulation on certain things because they find it offensive. It's terrible, dude. There's a culture. There's a government worship culture in Bolivia that is it's pathetic, dude. And we got to get rid of it. And that's why the libertarian movements are really growing in Bolivia, because we got to change that. I mean, soon freedom of speech is going to be gone soon. We don't have the right to bear arms. Well, you can buy a 22 caliber or a 9mm, but that's about it. You can't own anything else. So I mean, it's very. There's some things I compare to the U.S. that you guys have the Second Amendment and you have the First Amendment, and that is just things that you guys take for granted, but we really don't have, and it complicates things.
Yeah, I looked up that guy Marcelo Claure, and it's Marcelo, and the last name is Claure. This guy's a very interesting individual. He was born in Guatemala but got raised in Bolivia. He wireless service company Bright Star and sold that company to Sprint and has been doing a lot of high tech stuff. It's says in 2022 he was worth $2 billion, making him the richest person in Bolivia. But Bolivia is trying to take his money, you said, or what exactly is going on? He lives in New York City right now, but yes.
Yeah. No, he owns a football club here.
Yeah.
Or as you guys call it, soccer club here.
Soccer's a big deal there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And after he made some comments about the president, saying that he was the worst president ever, which was actually true. Like in my lifetime, at least, I've never seen a worse president in my life. They started auditing his company, his soccer club, and they're reporting that he has some debts in there against the taxman, and making a big fuss. Which there's nothing illegal, you can owe money to taxmen or whatever, but I mean, they're just kind of like trying to kind of publicly shame for something that is normal, and I guess they're auditing his books now, and I don't know, I mean, you're always gonna. I mean, when the IRS or the taxman comes to your door, there's no perfectly run business. I mean, there's always going to be a little mistake somewhere, and they can always latch onto that and build a criminal case against you. So that's kind of what they're doing. I think that's their plan. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, he also founded One Laptop Per Child. Yeah, so he sounds like he's really doing a lot of interesting things. Uh, shame I didn't know about this guy. Yes, so this really is really not creating a good climate for business. And is it fair to say that the poorest country I've been to is Peru? Is the is Bolivia better or worse than Peru? I mean, as far as because I hear it's a very
I
poor country.
I think Peru is miles ahead of Bolivia, miles,
Oh wow.
because in Peru you really have a legal security for your companies. Nobody's going to take your companies in Peru. They have pretty open market. They're pretty lenient on tariffs, on trade tariffs. That's why it's miles ahead, dude. You can't even compare it, honestly. We're way back. We're way back.
Wow, yeah. So, how do you compare to Paraguay?
Paraguay, actually, a lot of Bolivian businessmen are traveling to Paraguay and making investments there now because of legal security that there is there today. There's a big boom in Paraguay right now, and a lot of Bolivian investment is moving their money to Paraguay because it's safe and there's a lot of growth potential there. So it's kind of like the big. There's been an exodus to Paraguay. You can, I'm sure you can Google that and check out. There's probably a lot of reports on that, dude. A lot of investment from Bolivia to Paraguay.
Oh wow. Were they also say maybe investing in Argentina? Are they going to Argentina now that Milei's in charge, or what's how is
Uh,
Bolivia's relationship with Argentina?
it's I mean, with Argentina, I mean, at a government level, they're not okay with Milei because Milei is the complete opposite of what we have here. So I mean, the last government, the Cristina Kirchner or Fernandez, they were buddies. They accepted Evo Morales as to be exiled in Argentina. Well, he was in Argentina for all that time, but he was out of government, and but now no, now they're complete enemies. You're talking about black and white. It's nothing to do with Argentina. About Bolivians investing in Argentina, I'm not too sure about that. I'm sure there are some investments, but it's mostly Paraguay for now.
Well, Paraguay is closer. So, considering all that, though, yeah, who is the current president? What can you tell us about the current president right now?
Well, Luis Arce is he was the minister of finances and the supervised economy during the reign of Evo Morales. So he was kind of the guy in charge of all this massive spending. And now that he won the election, I don't know how he did it, dude. I'm not gonna talk about frauds or anything, but I mean it was kind of fishy. It was a little bit fishy how he got into power, getting 56% of the vote. And now he blames the past president Evo Morales for all the economic downfall that he has now. When it makes no sense because he was the one overseeing everything. It was kind of his ideas. And he's an economist who is very much on the Keynes line of thought. He's all about government spending. I mean, when they took office in 2006, we had very little external debt, internal debt. And after they left office, we had spent all the money that came through the sale of the gas that we had because prices were just skyrocketing, and it was just pure luck that they got all that money in their hands to spend. They just they blew it off. They blew all that money away, and they left us with the highest debt ever. So it's not just that they blew the money away. They left us also in debt. They just swiped that credit card like crazy and left us. Then right now they're selling the little gold, whatever gold we have left in the central bank. They're selling that now so they can maintain this huge bureaucratic apparatus, which is the government here. We have over 600,000 government employees. Each of them winning, mega salaries. Amazing salaries. Which just as an example, if you're a manager in a small company here, the GM here, a general manager, you're probably going to be winning around $1,000 to $1,500 a month in the best case average. A public employee earns from $2,000 to $5,000 a month. And that's the big problem. Government spending here is way out of control. I think it's a calculus around 80% of the budget goes to paying those salaries, and only 20% goes into infrastructure and other projects. And the reason for that is because having that amount of government employees kind of assures you a victory in the next elections, because you're talking about 600,000 employees that depend on you. You're the one who put them there. You're the one in power. So you got 600. Let's say let's say we have 8 million valid votes in Bolivia. Because we have 12 million, but in that population you have babies and kids and older people who don't want to vote and everything. So you got around 8 million people. So think about it. You have 600,000 government employees, which is 600,000 assured votes for you. But then you got their wives, So let's say you got 1.2 million, and then you got their teenage kids who already vote, or their adult kids. That's another 600,000 votes.
Yeah.
And then their mom or their dad, and just like that, you already have 2.5 million votes or 3 million votes. You have 30% of the votes assured. And with a little campaign, a little ad here, a little poster there, a little radio ad on the radio, you pump that up to 40%, and you become president.
And
you
of
get
course,
reelected.
And you mentioned 600,000 people in a country of about 12 million. That's 1 out of 20 people.
Exactly.
So
that's a lot.
That is a lot. And I would assume also you've got a lot. In some cases, it's the wives and the husbands and things like that. Because government does seem to attract a lot more women than say other jobs. It's just, women tend to be in a lot more paper pushing jobs, which is what you're doing in the government.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why the government is spending. This is where the libertarian movement kind of is born in Bolivia, because it doesn't matter really if an opposition leader comes in or another guy from the same party comes in. They're all kind of social. I've read the word in English, social democrats or something like that. Social
democrats. Yeah, it means we believe in we're communists, but we want free and open elections. But then we'll hope that they always go our way.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we'll
go
to court when they don't.
There's no out of all the candidates right now who are going to run for the presidential election in this August. There's only one or two maybe who are actually saying, hey, these companies that belong to the government should not have any companies, or should not be competing in any private market, producing. Dude, Chris, look, the Bolivian government has a glass factory. They got a paper company, a publishing company. They got the telephone company. They got a milk company. They do milk. They're producing rice. They're buying chickens. They want to produce chickens now. And I always said, I can guarantee you guys that these guys are going to start selling beer in a couple of years, because it brings more tax revenue than any other product. So it's logical that the government will launch its own beer, and people laugh about it, but it's really true. It's funny, but it's true.
Government beer. Yeah, you mentioned, Luis Arce, which is ARCE. He's, his party is Movement for Socialism. Oh my
Exactly.
goodness, Lord help you. What happened with that woman, Agnes, or whatever her name was?
Oh, Agnes, Janine. It was Janine Agnes. Oh, yeah, she
Yeah,
was the well in 2019. The whole country kind of revolted against Evo Morales' third. He wanted a fourth term, and he was
yeah.
just.
Morales
I
was in
mean,
there for a long time. Yeah,
yeah, almost 14 years. Yeah, and he wanted a fourth term, and people were just had enough, and they just marched in the streets. Everyone went marching, and the whole country stopped, dude. It was like the economy of the country just went to zero for like 30 days, and he just couldn't hold on anymore. So he resigned along with his whole cabinet, and the person that took power was Janine Agnes, who was an opposition. Uh, she was part of the opposition back then. So she went into power, and the first like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, dude, she was great, because she was talking about she was already like revoking visas and kicking people from Venezuela, from Maduro government out, from Cuba. A lot of Cuban people came here,
yeah.
were in, entering the health system and just collecting wages for the Cuban government, not even for them.
Oh,
So I mean, let's say they got paid $1,000 per month, and like 80% of that went to the Cuban government, so they finance themselves because they have nowhere to get money, and left them 20% for them to live here, So it was just a big scam. So she was doing really well in the beginning, and then, dude, it's just she just kept doing the same things that the other governments did. She never lowered any taxes. She never lowered any government employees. It was more of the same, and that's kind of like where you just kind of last hope. You're just like, you know what? Whether it's a right winger, a supposed right winger, or the left wings, they're kind of doing the same thing. That they're repeating the same vicious cycle. It's all spending and spending and spending, and then the COVID, the virus came. I don't think you say that on YouTube, but the famous virus came, and well, that complicated things for her. The whole quarantine, and people were trying to work. And
well, yeah.
Bolivia's.
Well, they weren't forced to implement those policies, but that was something I wanted to ask about eventually. Yeah, the famous
Yeah, yeah.
virus,
I mean,
the beer bug,
you're talking. So
the,
sorry,
the, the virus
you're
named
talking
after
about.
the Mexican beer. Yes, Corona.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And in a country where 85% of the market is informal, right? That's kind of like as libertarian as you can get. That's like, if you ask me, there's a lot of contraband in Bolivia, but I don't see it as something bad. I'm a legal importer. I import things legally. I try
Yeah,
to compete with contraband is a problem for selling for me, but you can't. You got to think of the well-being of the people. People getting a good price, because everything in Bolivia is really overpriced. Anything you buy in Bolivia is about 40% more expensive than it should be, just because of taxes. Taxes are really high here.
you mean
So I mean,
imported goods like electronics or laptops or stuff like that?
oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Let's say you import like a quilt from the States, you got a 40% tariff, and you got
On a
to pay
quilt?
14% over that. I mean, it's ridiculous, dude. I mean, and stuff that's not even being made here. So I mean, like, basically, so I mean, that's kind of like an overview of you know you have 85% of an informal black market here, and you implement the lockdowns, and it's people that really live by the day, dude. I mean, it was,
Yes.
if they didn't sell one day, they didn't eat. So I mean, there was a lot of pushback towards that, and it was a moment of crisis. I mean, and that really didn't help her at all. So that's why she left, and eventually nobody liked her in the end. It was more of the same thing.
Yeah. I know a lot of the places in these poor countries, the people cannot afford to take a day off of work. It just isn't an option for them. It's so ridiculous. And I really wonder if America had not went down this path, would all these other countries have went down this path? And it seems like because America went down this path and completely betrayed everything America allegedly stands for, all these other countries did too. I mean, and a lot of countries in South America were just horrible. I mean, and especially in these poor countries. I mean, I one thing I realized during the pandemic was the misery falls to the bottom. Exactly. We had our misery here, but you people in Bolivia, where you're a lot more poor, you had a whole lot more misery, and I can just imagine how much misery these ridiculous, sadistic policies caused. I mean,
I mean, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad, man. I mean, the wave kind of hit here pretty hard, and you're talking about the usual, like just hospitals being oversaturated and all this stuff. But I mean, the people in the streets, when even in the hard lockdowns,
yes,
people still went out and sold, wearing their mask, wearing their the face mask, but they were still selling in the street, and there was nothing the government could do, because I mean, it was just it's a section, it's a part of the population, the whole people that the small retailers and the people that work on the streets and sell in the streets. It's such a big crowd of people that the government actually fears that side, and that's actually a good thing,
Yeah, that's a very good thing. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they did that. They just said, I can't do this. I have to go out and they sold anyway. And hearing about the woman getting arrested for taking out her trash in Peru and things like men could go out 3 days, women could go out 3 days, and nobody could go out on Sunday in Peru and stuff like that. It's hard pressed to see who was the worst person during all this, but
exactly,
Peru was pretty awful. Argentina was pretty awful. I mean, the only country that wasn't awful in South America, from what I've heard, is Uruguay, but I haven't looked into all of them. It was all so bad, So
it was bad. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad everywhere. Yeah, I agree.
So you think there's still socialism? Sounds like it's still pretty popular among Bolivians. Is that true or not?
It is, and it is, and this is something that I realized is it's not just in Bolivia, dude. It's everywhere. Like, there's people that I know that went to private schools, studied abroad, had great lives, no real struggles, and that you can compare to someone who's really struggling. I mean, like in some really, really third world countries, and it's these same people that give the same talking points over and over again. It's like it's crazy. It's like it's the people that say, I'm neither left nor right. I'm in the center, and because I'm in the center, I'm more civilized, and I don't belong to neither one of these two extremes. And it's I don't know. I really, they kind of see it as a virtue, and it really isn't. And a clear example. Let's use there's a certain there's in Cochabamba, the people that grow the coca leaves, which obviously what coca leaves are the final product is. You've seen it on Scarface. It's
Cochabamba is one of your largest cities. Yeah, not heard of it, but
exactly.
I love that name too. Cochabamba.
Cochabamba. Yeah, and
sounds so South American. Yeah,
that's South America. Exactly. Yeah. So what happens, right? The miners, the people that do mining in Potosi, and the people that produce the coca in Cochabamba are paying roughly a tax around 3%, right, for when they sell that product, while everyone else pays 16%, basically for the sales of goods. It's a 16% tax that we have here. So there's people say, hey, that's not fair, but they should pay as much as we're paying, They should pay 16%. And I'm like, dude, wouldn't it be more reasonable? Wouldn't it make more sense that we paid the 3% they're paying instead of asking for them to pay the 60%? Because that's not going to help in anything at all. Like, I mean, you're going to collect more tax for the government to spend on dumb stuff, and just steal and spend on dumb things.
Yeah.
So I mean, so it's really people. The people are really ingenuous here. I mean, they need that final push to really realize that certain things that they've been hearing their whole lives and hearing their parents talk their whole lives are not right, dude. You know what I mean? Like the whole tax thing is everybody should pay taxes. I'm like, no, nobody should. We should
Yeah.
all pay a minimum amount of taxes, minimal, like
Yeah.
minimal as can be. Just the necessary to for the
Yeah.
government to sustain a healthy justice system if that's possible, and do a little infrastructure. That's it, man. That's it, really. That's all you need. And then people are just like, yeah, but we need a universal healthcare system. All right, if you need healthcare, you can make an efficient way to give healthcare, or through you don't have to build hospitals. You can use private hospitals, and the government can give you a little check if you need a medical checkup. That's as good as money, and you choose whatever hospital you want to go to, or whatever school you want to send your kids to. It's just like points like that people need to learn, because this country is never going to change if people keep thinking that way. It's the same old things, the same old thing, and it's because the people ask for those things. The people think it's a good idea for the government to invest in sports. We're going to invest money for more kids to play sports. I'm like, why does my tax money have to go into dumb programs like that? Let every family decide if they want to build a little league football team on the weekends, and if their kids want to do sports. It's stuff that the private sector can handle perfectly. But I mean, people still think of the government as their big brother, or their father. It's like it's here to protect us, and if it's not protecting us, it's not doing our job. People gotta really start looking at the government, any government, dude, any. I mean, even Milei's government, they gotta look at those governments as enemies. The government is always going to be an enemy. It's never going to be looking out for your best interest. The people going into power are never going to look out for your best interest. It's always their best interest. So even if a libertarian comes into power here, there's still going to be regulations to be revoked. There's still going to be taxes to be reduced. So government is always going to be the enemy. That's just the way. That's the only way for this country to change, and not just Bolivia. I mean, any country in the world, really. It's that center mentality that really it drives me crazy, man. I don't know what you think.
Why does it seem like the man who pays 10% tax in taxes, and the other guy pays 5% in taxes, why does it seem like the guy who pays the higher tax wants to increase taxes on the lower guy instead of trying to lower his taxes? Does it seem that way to you or not?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it really comes down to I think it's a primitive way of thinking. It's kind of like, why is he getting a better deal than me? It's really
Yeah.
jealousy. If you think about it, it's really envy.
But why do you
Because
want to increase somebody's pain instead of trying to decrease your own? I don't get it.
exactly. For these people, it feels better for everyone to get screwed over, like they're getting screwed over, and so they come down to his level, because he knows that that the he knows he can't, the way he's living, he's doing his things, he can't reach that level of the guy who's paying 10%. So it really is envy. It really is jealousy.
Yeah. Cochabamba is another really high city, by the way, too. Yeah.
Oh, but it's nothing compared to La Paz, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
when you go from La Paz to Cochabamba, you actually breathe much better and you feel much better.
Oh, yeah. I've been dying to ask you, have you ever, and granted, you talked about infrastructure in the mountains. Have you ever been on that Yungas Road that has a reputation for, it's often called the world's most dangerous road? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, my family used to have a house down in Yungas, and we used to travel down that road like twice a year for like 10 years straight, you know. So I'm pretty familiar with that road, and it was more dangerous back then than it is now. So I mean, not now it's only like used for some cars go through there, and usually for bike rides. You know, it's called a
Yeah.
death road.
Well, they built another road, and I think they still left it, as a bike path so people could bike on it.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't done the bike path yet, but I mean, I'm pretty familiar with that road. It's it's pretty cool, actually. You know, there's an episode of Top Gear. You know, the show Top Gear, the
I don't
British.
know that show. Yeah,
It's
I
a
think I
British
did hear
car
that.
show. Yeah, they did a death road, and they did an episode on that. You might want to
Yeah,
check it out on YouTube one day. It's pretty funny. It's pretty cool, actually. They show a lot of cool parts in there. They exaggerate a little bit, you know, but it's pretty cool.
yeah. I mean, having grown up with mountain roads and stuff like that, and roads on the hills with no guardrails, I am somewhat fascinated by those. And I got to tell you, people who city people are much more afraid of those roads than, say, people who would drive the Yungas road. You put them in downtown New York City, and they'd say, "Oh, this is fine." But
Oh yeah,
you go the other way, it's like, "No, this is." I mean, the Yungas road. It was 64 kilometers from La Paz to the Yungas region of Bolivia, and it was just this dirt road but probably had
it's really not.
vehicles on it
It's
that
really
shouldn't
not
have
that bad.
yeah.
It's really not that bad. I'm sure if you arrive from like New York and go there, you'll probably freak out a little bit, but once you're there, it's not that bad.
And also major elevation change, so major changes in weather, stuff like that. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely.
But they did
Yeah.
eventually bypass that road and build a better road. And
Yeah. There's a new road. Yeah, it's all asphalt. And it's not as mystical as the other one.
yeah, but it's when you have such a mountainous country, it's hard to build that infrastructure. And Bolivia is pretty mountainous, right?
Yeah. I mean, the whole you're talking about west side of Bolivia is all mountains. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about Potosi, you're talking about Oruro, you're talking about La Paz. That's all mountains.
Yes, indeed. Have you? And I wanted to ask you too. Have you seen some of the sites there? I mean, like Lake Titicaca, the Salt Flats.
Yeah. I've been in Lake Titicaca a couple times. Can you believe I've only seen the salt flats from far away when I used to go there for around there for work. I've never actually gone into the salt flats. I'm ashamed to say that, but I haven't made it there yet. But it looks beautiful.
And those are also over on the west side. Yeah, there's some very interesting natural beauty there. I mean, Lake Titicaca's in Peru and in of course Bolivia. And you got some other things too that you might.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of cool places to visit in Bolivia. I mean, there's the salt flats, the Yungas. There's a lot of tropical regions that are really cool. A lot of the Amazon on the other side. You got the wine, the big wine factories in the south. You got the mining and down south as well. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and since it is a rainforest, so it looks like to me you've got plenty of food there, right? I mean, a country, a large country with only 11 million people. I mean, we have some of these poor countries, that are just deserts, but then you have a poor country though where there's just plant life and just fruits and all that stuff everywhere. And of course, you might have some people raising cattle.
Exactly. There's a lot of production here, but like I said once again, due to the lack of legal safety here for companies, there's sometimes this food scarcity, and there's people that import way better fruit than the one here from Peru and Chile, so
yeah,
it really depends in some cases.
Yeah. So, yeah, seems like it might be a remarkable country, though. Who are some good heroes and great heroes in Bolivia that we should know about? Is there anybody worth mentioning? I mean, what did Bolivar say about free markets? I mean, what was his political philosophy? I really don't know that much about what he believed.
Well, I mean, Bolivar was basically against the Spanish crown, right? He fought for the
Yeah.
independence of Bolivia and South America against the Spanish crown. I mean, back when the taxes were like 2%, and now we're being
Yeah.
charged 40%, and we don't say anything. Same for
Yeah.
you guys. I mean, when you guys fought the British, I mean, the Boston Tea Party, you're talking about how the tax didn't exceed 5%, from what I
Yeah.
understand. And well, now you guys are being taxed all the way to the neck. And that was kind of
Yeah.
that was kind of the idea. It was just the oppression from the Spanish crown that people um, revolted against.
Yes, and you call your coin the Boliviano.
Boliviano, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
I like that. Yeah, you actually have the name of the country in your currency, which is pretty cool. I don't know how
yeah.
many.
And right now in Bolivia, we're going into an inflation period now. The Boliviano is losing a lot of his is it acquisitive power? I think
Inquisitive, you said?
no, for acquisition power. Whatever you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's value, and I mean it already went up like around 60. It already lost around 50% of its value. So I mean the U.S. dollar is every day gets stronger here, and the Boliviano gets weaker. So and the government is printing a lot of money and not reporting it. So because you go to an ATM here and you take out money, let's say you take 1,000 bolivianos out in 100 boliviano bills, and you'll see that they're all brand new bills, each in sequential order. Which is the biggest telltale or biggest tell that they're
Yes.
printing money.
Oh my
So
dear.
money printing is a real thing here. It's happening, and things are getting more expensive. It's getting harder to get your hands on dollars again.
Yeah.
But that's just a reality.
Well, even for that matter, let's just look at the Boliviano versus the Argentine peso. I mean, we're looking at 118 about a year ago, and now we're looking at 153. So one Argentine peso will now get me about 153 Bolivianos. That's
Yeah,
definitely not a good place to be. Yeah. So
exactly. So I mean, like, and especially with all this currency thing happening, there's a lot of libertarian movements uh, coming into play now. And
yeah,
that's one that we spoke to you about when you talked to Alvaro, right?
yeah.
The
Yeah, I
the
talked to Alvaro, but as you pointed out, when you have an informal economy like that too, it's almost always a cash economy. Do you have situations like in Argentina where people are actually using dollars to transact a lot of business? I mean, I
yeah
don't know. Or maybe they're using Peruvian soles, or maybe they're using Brazilian reals to do business. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, right now, a lot of people are running to the Peruvian sol right now
Yeah,
because it's easier to get, and then you can trade that to dollars easier, and it's. I mean, people are always gonna. There's always a way to do things. There's always a way to 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 go around all the problems that the government has caused. So yeah, the Peruvian sol is definitely one of the best weapons we have right now for
no,
importers and people who gotta send money outside.
certainly. That's one thing I love about Peru. I think it's the only country in the world that names its currency after the sun.
Yeah,
It's basically the
exactly.
Peruvian sun. Yeah, I love that. Uh,
Yeah,
so what about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in Bolivia? How's that? Is there any usage of that or?
yeah. So I mean, it only took basically our financial crash for the government to realize that they should let people deal in crypto assets.
Yeah,
So like a couple months ago, the Bolivian central bank actually authorized the use and buy. You could buy and sell crypto assets. Like Bitcoin and Ethereum and whatever, anything crypto in general. And it was all going well. Like, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic about crypto assets myself, but I think in a time of crisis like the one Bolivia is going through, or any country that's going through some type of inflation and wants to preserve the value of their money in U.S. dollars, I think it's a great way to do it. I think it's a great option. People should have that option to do it, and now they do have that. But then they open the market, and then, like always, like any good socialist government, they started regulating it and putting limits. And I mean, it was it was good news for a little while, and then it was back to like the same old, just over regulation of the whole crypto scene here. So I mean, people still buy USDTs, buy Bitcoin, but I mean, it would have been much better without so much interference.
Yes, USDT, of course, is the crypto that's pegged to the US dollar. One of the cryptos pegged to it. Yes, there's
exactly
also called Tether, but yeah. So that's a very, is there any place else I should, if we come down to Bolivia, is there any place else we should visit? I mean, it seems like it's a very unique and kind of a wild place, but yeah.
Dude, I mean, you got a lot. I mean, if you want to, La Paz is. You're gonna see it's basically the metropolis of Bolivia. It's all where all the buildings are, where all the banks are. I mean, it's more of a city where there's a lot of like marches and a lot of protests. It's kind of all the government buildings are here, but we're kind of used to that now. We just walk down the street and there's people throwing like dynamite, like on the street and fireworks, and we don't even get scared anymore. It's just it's just.
Where can I see some great history? Is there some great history I can see there? I want to go see the history.
Yeah. A lot of buildings, a lot of cool buildings, a lot of cool infrastructure, all that. So definitely, I mean, you guys are welcome to come here, and when you do come here, let us know, and we'll help you guys out with a tour for sure.
Yeah, I don't. Bolivia doesn't really get a lot of gringo tourism, does it? At least not compared to the rest of the countries. I mean.
Yeah, because this dumb government actually started charging American tourists like $100 per visa. So I mean that kind of didn't help out at all. Yeah. We got a couple. We got a couple every now and then. There's a lot of tourists, but it could be much more.
Yeah, well, they figure, Americans are coming here. They got money, so they could pay a little fee. It's not unusual to pay a fee. It's not unusual to pay a fee to enter a country, though. That's but sometimes I don't know if many they're that high, but they might be $20 or something like that. Just get the visa.
Yeah. But I mean, 100 is kind of pushy,
But you also got to fly there and get there, and
exactly. Yeah.
What can you tell me? What's been the history? Because Bolivia certainly had a series of wars, and it was once a larger country than it is. I mean, how did Bolivia become the Bolivia that we know today?
Well, we had access to the sea, to the Pacific Ocean, and in a war we lost against Chile in 1879, I think, if I'm not 1870 something. We lost our entire access to the sea, so we became a landlocked country. We lost also territory to Paraguay in like I think it was 1920s. I think 1920s around there. And we started losing land in different battles. We just weren't good at war, I guess.
You've lost some land. You've also lost some land to Brazil as well. Yeah, like
we lost land to Brazil too. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, actually,
Bolivia's not really drained that much by the Amazon, is it? I mean, it's mostly more. Is it part of the Amazon rainforest or not?
The north and the northeast is definitely more Amazonian. It's definitely part of the Amazon. A lot of jungle, a lot of rivers. It's hot weather. Definitely there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Is there any? I went to Peru for Amazonian plant medicines. Is there any of that going on down there or not? It's all over.
I'm sure there is. I'm not really aware of that market too much,
Yeah.
but I'm sure there is. Honestly, there's a lot of variety in our tropical areas, so there's definitely that. There's got to
Yes.
be.
Yeah. Well, the plants have been. You can't stop the plants from growing, and you mentioned the coca plant, but it's a there's a lot of yeah. Anything else special that I haven't covered that makes Bolivia? It sounds like you're kind of soured on a lot of the government regulations, but
Yeah,
anything else that makes the
I
place
mean,
worth visiting?
Bolivia's a beautiful country. I think it's a beautiful country. It's got so much potential. All it
Yeah.
needs is just a government that will really give all any investors outside of the country the legal security they need, and it's just government has to be turned. It really has to do a 180. It's got to give legal security. It's got to lower taxes. It's got to cut spending. The number one problem here is spending. Is government spending.
Yes.
If that doesn't get lowered, there's no solution for anything. That's got to be the number one step. There's a bunch of ways to do it. As libertarians, with the political group we're in, it's Avanza Libertad. You talked to Alvaro about that too.
Yeah.
We met him. We're forming a political group here. We want to form a political party. We want to have the first libertarian party legally registered and legally on the ballots.
Yes.
So that's our plan. Because that's what we're all about. We have plans to lower taxes. We have plans to lower the spending through very innovative ways. With vouchers and um, getting that weight of having so many employees off the government's back, so it can be more efficient, and spend less. So there's a bunch of ways to do that, and I think that people really, if anyone watches this podcast, is in Bolivia, to contact us, contact Avanza Libertad on Facebook, on TikTok, on all these social media platforms, to really, get to know us better, get to know our plans better, and join a movement who really cares for its country. We really care about our country. We want our country to be great. To grow. We want to leave a good country for our kids as well. So, I mean, you gotta, and if you want that, you gotta get into. Unfortunately, you gotta get into politics, because if you don't get into politics, someone else will do it for you. And when those people that go into politics are usually not very libertarian or not very right wing in general, they're not into lowering taxes. They're into promising people stuff and giving free stuff, and just the basic lies that we always know about.
Yes, and of course you end up with, and I assume also that the worst communists are the college professors.
There's a lot of Marxist indoctrination in public universities. Yes, a lot. Even our current president, is a teacher at a public university here, at
Oh
the
my
Davis University
goodness.
of La Paz. So you can imagine the economic information and theories that those students are receiving from him.
Oh yes, I mean I can imagine what they're all hearing. Yeah, so maybe we won't have a Milei type, but maybe also more Bolivians will go to Argentina or go to some of the other countries too. That might see that happen.
Hopefully, man. But I hope they don't leave, because we need those people here to change this country. So I hope that they stay here and join the movement here. That leads to more freedom, liberty. That's all we want. That's all you need. Get government
That's
off your back.
that's definitely get the government off the backs. Well, Marcos, where can we find? And we never asked what exactly do you do down there? Because you
Me,
recommended
well,
me to somebody else. Yeah.
No, me personally, or
Yeah,
politically.
yeah. I mean, what's your credentials, or what are you doing? It's a
Oh, I'm a student here. I studied in the American school here. I
yeah.
studied in the States and in England. And when I
Okay,
returned, sorry.
so you're very well traveled. It sounds like.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough to study abroad, and I just decided to come back to Bolivia to start working here with my family. And then I founded my company, which is an import company, which I started importing tires, and then I started importing motor oils, and then I
Oh,
started importing stuff for home, like home stuff. Got some representations from American brands and brands all over the world, and that's basically what I've been doing for the last couple of years. Just imports and working in the private sector.
oh yeah, of course, yeah. But you've been to England, you've been to the U.S. Anywhere? Where else have you been around South America?
South America. I mean, Argentina, Peru, Chile, Paraguay. Uh, South America, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, and
Yeah,
states, some parts of Europe, and
yeah.
in general, just we've been around some places. But I haven't been to Asia yet, but I'll probably
Yeah.
get there sometime.
Where do you think the next melee could happen if one does
I don't
happen?
think I don't think there's ever going to be another Milei because
Yeah,
that's what I was talking to you about in the beginning of the interview. I
yeah,
don't think there's going to be another Milei because he's just too unique. The way the conditions that he had, the whole Argentinian thing, that the way they express themselves. I really don't think there's going to be another Milei. I don't think it's necessary for there to be another Milei. I think there could be I mean, say what you want about Trump, but I think his whole when he was campaigning and just bashing all his opponents, and I mean, I wouldn't compare Trump to Milei, but I mean, they both have their own style, but they're both on that kind of path that really made things different. They didn't do politics or the political campaigns in a typical manner that all the other boring politicians did. So I mean, it really, I don't think there's going to be another Millet per se, but there will be people who are original, who don't hold back on what they're thinking, and I think that's kind of what people are looking for now. So I mean, anybody who can do that properly, and knowing how to get into their own segment in their country, not trying to imitate Millet, because when a Bolivian tries to imitate Millet, there's been a couple of Bolivians who try to imitate Millet style, and it just doesn't work. It's just cringy. So I mean, you got to find your own style. You got to find your own market and know how to act around your people. Just give them, see how they react, and that'll be the next Millet in quotation marks. The next big thing.
yeah. We'll certainly see. I mean, I certainly want to be optimistic about the future of the country. It's and the future of the world. I mean, I don't really see anybody else really creating hope for the world right now. But yeah, it's good to hear how unique Milei is, though. I hope at the same time maybe more people can learn to be like him and he'll inspire something. Well, okay,
Yeah,
well, Marcos, thank you for coming on here. Where can we find you out there on the net?
yeah. You guys can find me. But I would ask people to follow our political group. It's called Avanza Libertad. It's
Avanza Libertad,
AV.
yeah,
Yeah,
advanced.
Avanza Libertad. Yeah, we're on social medias like Facebook, Instagram, on TikTok. So we're a political movement. We're liberal. I mean, when I say liberal, I don't mean American liberal. We're classical liberals,
Rock
libertarians.
star liberals like Milei.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So that's kind of the plan. So look for us there if you're interested in joining the movement or supporting us. Follow us, and we we'll try not to disappoint. Always take down the right path towards more freedom. So that's kind of the message we have.
Things happen slowly then fast. Yes. Well, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, go buy me a coffee where people are buying me a coffee. Go buy my novel Escape from the Village. Check out my Substack and yeah. So and thank you very much, Marcos Quevedo. I'm Chris Baker. This has been a great talk. We're out. Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you.